Coming up in the Bahamas tonight, a ruling is pending in the North Andros voter planting hearing. Ahead tonight, where things stand after a third day of testimony today. ZNS Chairman Michael Moss has responded to controversy surrounding Jerome Sawyer's pending departure from ZNS. And preemptive action taken by 200 city markets workers as the food store chain prepares to close its doors this week. All those stories and more straight ahead in the Bahamas tonight.
Covering the islands of the Bahamas, ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight.
This portion of the news is brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
Good evening and welcome to the Bahamas Tonight, the National Report. I'm Kishla Adderley. Thanks for joining us. Topping the news this evening, a decision in the North Andros voter planting hearing is expected next week. Administrator Huntley Christie, who is hearing evidence in the case, is expected to deliver a ruling Monday on whether or not a group of people registered in North Andros actually live there and are therefore entitled to vote in the constituency. Today, 3 people testified in a third day of hearings, and it's reported that 7 people who were scheduled to appear in the court didn't show up today. Meantime, another 18 voters have reportedly transferred their voters' registration to other constituencies. This as objectors reportedly present the names of 2 people who they believe are not ordinarily resident in North Andros but are on the register. Lawyers for both the Progressive Liberal Party and the Free National Movement are to present their submissions in writing on Friday before Mr. Christie makes his ruling. Dubbing the return of more than 5,000 acres of land from the I Group to the Crown the greatest land take-back, Member of Parliament for Marcos City, Shavargo Lang, opened debate on the modification of provisions Mayaguana Island Development Limited Bill 2012 in the House of Assembly this morning. Mr. Lang said that this is a true testament to the assertion that the F&M government believes in Bahamians, noting that the former administration has criticized his party for selling land to foreigners. Mr. Lang said when it comes to land sales, the PLP holds the record. Janaea Noel Ferguson has more.
The PLP administration sold more than 15% of land to foreigners during their tenure, says MP for Marcos City and Minister of State for Finance, Shavargo Lang. Citing the deal with the I Group as one of the most egregious examples, Lang said it would have landlocked the settlements on Mayaguana with no room for expansion.
If you take Pirates Wells under the original agreement, Pirates Wells would have had no opportunity to expand west or east, and would only have had opportunity to expand south. And what is south? South is swampland.
Mr. Lang explained that under the new agreement, developers retain 2,912 acres of land, but has conditional access to 2,913 acres.
If they start the airport within 6 months of the agreement being executed and complete the airport within 18 months, they have the ability to acquire under option 1 350 acres of this land here as part of the new and modified agreement.
Seconding the bill was MP for Blue Hills Sidney Colley, who is also the F&M candidate for Mike-Hal. He noted that before the formal agreement was made, residents wanted some land to be excluded that were included in the deal. He also accused the former administration of a, quote, scandalous practice of refusing residents Crown land.
Crown land was granted to strangers, while persons from Mayaguana who lived there could not get any Crown land.
Strangers got Crown land.
Meanwhile, MP for Mike-Hal V. Alfred Gray charged that the deal was a 50-50 joint venture between the government and the developers.
There was never a transfer of land to any foreign interest group, not up to this moment as I speak. Now, Mr. Speaker, Mayaguana needs this development.
Now an argument ensued between Mr. Gray and Mr. Colley. Gray said that the development was meant to spur growth in the southern Bahamas.
They talked about this development, but when they stopped it in 2007, there were 87 people employed. Mr. Roy and his group had spent more than $14 million on that project.
Janae Noel Ferguson, ZNS News.
During debate, Mr. Lang also sought to poke holes in the PLP mantra, believing in Bahamians. He noted several instances where under the PLP, foreigners were contracted or engaged for jobs that could have been done by Bahamians. They include the selection of a president for the College of the Bahamas, the management of the LPIA, the construction of T.G. Glover Primary School, and the construction of the Bimini Bay Resort by Mexicans. This prompted a response from West End and Bimini MP Obi Wilchcombe, who claimed that that was something that was in place when the PLP came into office.
The agreement to allow for the Mexican employees was signed in 1998 by the then Free National Movement government, not the Progressive Liberal Party government. And the Progressive Liberal Party subsequently discussed with the developers scaling back the project that we had at the time opposed.
Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham, however, addressed the issue that he labeled an untruth.
We National Movement government never agreed for Mexican workers to come into Bimini. Never, ever. It is non-true. It is non-true.
In other news tonight, credit unions in the country have become such big business that the government is moving in a way to create a safety net for project investors by legislating trade unions. The government is hoping to avert problems like those faced by the clients of a now defunct Clico insurance company. Carla Palmer has details.
Are basically financial institutions. They are operating similar to banks.
For that and another major concern, Minister responsible for cooperatives, Lawrence Cartwright, confirms the government's decision to now have all credit unions regulated by the central bank. The move comes amid the success of the country's 11 credit unions and to protect assets worth millions of dollars.
Right in this era, matters such as Clico, persons who would have invested in agencies like that would have, unless the liquidator can do something for them, would have basically lost all of their investment. The same thing applies to the credit unions. In the event that there is any serious problem and their funds experience difficulties, all of the depositors there, without deposit insurance, they would just lose their investment.
Under the central bank's framework, credit unions will be guaranteed a safety net of the depositor's insurance. With 8,000 members and an asset base of $35 million, Chief Executive Officer of the National Workers Cooperative Credit Union, Alfred Poitier, sees it as an added bonus.
The way credit unions are set up presently and the act that governs credit union, despite the fact that there is no government guaranteed or depositor's insurance, we are regulated to provide for what's called, to provide a stabilization fund. This is separate and apart from our reserves, right? And the percentages under the Cooperative Act are higher for our reserves and stabilization than the central bank have for the banks.
At present, credit unions are governed by the Department of Cooperatives.
So when the governance of the credit union is moved under the central bank, the inspectors, as opposed to coming from the Department of Cooperatives, will be coming from the central bank.
To enact the changes, parliamentary legislation will be made to the Cooperatives Act. Carla Palmer, ZNS News.
Well, still to come in the Bahamas tonight, the Broadcasting Corporation responds to the pending departure of broadcaster Jerome Sawyer, has all manner of theories swirled around it. That story's after the break.